Hello, welcome to the Mega News. 6 News coming to you live from our studios on the 10th Avenue Extension, Greater Estate, Nungwa at Dugano. We also live across our social media handles on MBN 360. My name is El Samuels. The headlines.
President John Dramani Mahama challenges World Health Organization. Reform must be real, not ritual. In business, BOG moves to calm forex storm as CD weekends. And on the international front, strike over high fuel prices paralyzes transport in Kenya.
Those and many other stories coming up in the next half an hour. The President John Dramani Mahama is calling for a big and bold, meaningful reforms at the World Health Organization, WHO, warning that global health system cannot afford symbolic change in the face of real threats.
President John Dramani Mahama has issued a strong call for deep structural reforms within the World Health Organization, insisting that global health leadership must go beyond rhetoric and deliver real measurable impact. Speaking at an international platform on global health governance, President Mahama highlighted critical lessons from recent global health crisis, pointing to gaps in preparedness, coordination, and equitable access to healthcare resources. He stressed that without genuine reform, developing countries, especially across Africa, will continue to face disproportionate challenges during global emergencies. The president called for fairer representation in decision-making, sustainable financing, and greater accountability within the WHO, emphasizing that reform must not become a routine exercise, but a results-driven process. His remarks come at a time of increasing global scrutiny over the effectiveness of international health institutions and renewed calls for transparency and inclusivity. President Mahama concluded by urging world leaders to act decisively, warning that the credibility of global health systems depends on their ability to respond effectively when it matters most.
I'm concerned about whispers I've heard that the current draft resolution seeks to protect existing organizational mandates and prohibits the recommendation of mergers or consolidations. In Mali, the Dogon people warn that do not let the sight of those eating roasted maize force you to cook your maize seeds. If we launch a process of reform that is prohibited from recommending actual reform, we are merely performing a ritual. We cannot prioritize institutional comfort over human survival. The WHO's legitimacy is not served by protecting silos. It is served by a fearless analysis of what works.
The President, John Dramani Mahama, meanwhile, the President has also declared that Africa must move beyond donor dependency, calling for self-reliance and sustainable health financing at the World Health Assembly.
President John Dramani Mahama has made a bold declaration at the World Health Assembly, stating that the era of Africa's over-reliance on donor support must come to an end. Addressing global health leaders, the president emphasized that while international aid has played a significant role in supporting health systems across the continent, the time has come for African nations to take greater ownership of their healthcare financing and delivery. He noted that dependency on external funding often limits long-term planning and weakens the resilience of health systems, particularly during global crises. President Mahama urged African governments to prioritize domestic resource mobilization, invest in healthcare infrastructure, and strengthen local capacity. The president also called for a shift in global partnerships from aid-based models to equitable collaboration, where African countries have a stronger voice in decision-making and agenda setting. His remarks come amid growing conversations about sustainability, sovereignty, and resilience in global health, especially following the lessons of recent pandemics. President Mahama concluded by urging African leaders to embrace bold reforms that will secure the continent's health future independently.
Ghana, I'm also happy to report, is on track to exit Gavi funding for vaccines by the year 2030, and we hope to transition into a donor in the not too distant future. These domestic achievements are the foundation of my leadership of the Accra Reset Initiative. Ladies and gentlemen, this Assembly is set to consider a proposal for joint process to reform the global health architecture. Ghana, having co-chaired the working group for the Lusaka agenda, welcomes this. But as a committed apostle of reform of the world health architecture, I'm concerned about whispers I have heard that the Cairn draft resolution seeks to protect existing organizational mandates and prohibits the recommendation.
Away from the presidency, government ropes up preparedness as health authorities tighten surveillance response and capacity and public awareness following a renewed Ebola concerns across parts of the continent.
Ghana is stepping up efforts to reinforce its emergency health systems in response to the recent Ebola outbreak reported in parts of Africa. Health officials say the move is aimed at safeguarding lives and preventing any potential spillover into the country. The Ghana Health Service, in collaboration with the Ministry of Health, has intensified surveillance at all entry points, including airports and land borders. Screening protocols have been reactivated, with rapid response teams placed on standby across high-risk regions. Authorities are also boosting the capacity of designated treatment centers, ensuring that critical logistics such as personal protective equipment, isolation units, and trained personnel are readily available. Public education campaigns have been rolled out nationwide to inform citizens about symptoms, prevention, and the importance of early reporting. Health experts emphasize that while Ghana has not recorded any confirmed Ebola cases, vigilance remains key. The government is urging the public to remain calm but alert, adhere to hygiene protocols, and cooperate with health directives. The renewed measures come as several African countries intensify their own responses, highlighting the need for regional cooperation and swift action to contain the spread of the deadly virus. Ghana's proactive approach signals a commitment to protecting public health as authorities work to stay ahead of any potential threat.
Away from the health story, the Parliament Public Accounts Committee demands answers from the Labour Ministry over unaccounted a vehicle valued at 223,000 Ghana cedis and unexplained interest accumulation spanning 14 years.
The Public Accounts Committee of Parliament has questioned officials from the Ministry of Employment and Labour Relations over discrepancies involving state vehicles worth 223,000 Ghana cedis that cannot be accounted for. During a heated sitting, the committee expressed concern about the missing assets, which were cited in the Auditor General's report. Lawmakers demanded clarity on how the vehicles went missing and why no recovery or accountability measures have been successfully enforced over the years. The committee also raised red flags over interest that has accrued on related financial obligations for over 14 years, describing the situation as a lapse in financial discipline and oversight. Members questioned why the ministry failed to act earlier to settle or resolve the issue before the liabilities escalated. Officials from the ministry admitted to gaps in documentation and pledged to collaborate with relevant agencies to trace the missing vehicles and reconcile the outstanding amounts. The committee has directed the ministry to provide detailed records and a clear recovery plan, warning that sanctions could follow if accountability is not ensured. The Public Accounts Committee insists it will pursue the matter to its logical conclusion, reinforcing Parliament's role in safeguarding public resources.
The ministry, as we stand now, we don't have enough documentation on it. So when the auditors came, we made them aware that we don't have enough documentation on this. For the price adjustments of the pickup, that is selling automotive, they have been paid, but then they are saying that there was delay in payment. So they computed some interest for us to pay, of which Ministry of Finance was made aware of. The 2 horsepower air conditioning too, we don't have enough documentation on it. So we told the auditors, as we stand, we don't have enough documentation on them. So they reached out to those institutions, but then the institutions also didn't respond to what the auditors raised. For the last one, the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, they are building, the cost for the completion of the building was a 5.1 million. The 4.3 million was work certified. And so because they were work certified, the auditors agreed to it. But then the remaining amount is work yet to be done. So they were rejected. And we all agreed to it that because it's work yet to be done, we agreed for it to be rejected.
That 40% of that amount was paid. And that subsequent to the auditors making verification with the suppliers, we could not find the 60%, and that is where you agreed to the rejection. If you did not include this, how did you get to know that 40% of this amount was paid? And upon what documents did you verify the 40% from?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What happened was we saw this one by the auditors. We reached out after the auditors have finished and we were supposed to come here. We reached out and they are credible, so validated we should pay. We don't have them. These are some photocopies that we got, and that speaks to the issues.
From the part sitting, we go for a commercial break. When we return, the news continues.
Let me introduce you to Farm Global Company Limited. At Farm Global, we offer you a variety of groceries and provisions to choose from. Cosmetics, perfumes, bed sheets, undies, boxes, you can mention all. This is our perfume stand, and we have variety of perfumes you can choose from for yourself and your loved ones. We cover Latapa, fragrance world, and quality perfumes that will last long on your body. On our cosmetic section, we have variety of lotions, creams, hair pomade that can keep you going. Let your feet do the talking and your hand do the showcasing. Your babies are not left out. We got you covered. At Farm Global, we make shopping a beautiful experience for you and your family. You can be at home, send your list, and get it delivered for free. Yes, for free. We know you can pay for it, but we want to show appreciation. We bring everything to you at your doorstep. Locate Farm Global on the Lungwa Boade Road, just opposite Redeemer Chemist. Call us on 0592 0999 52 or 050-384-3633. Farm Global, fast, reliable, and convenient.
Welcome back from the break. You're still live on the Evening Bulletin, live and direct from our studios on the 10th Avenue Extension, Greater Estate. The news continues. The Tema Development Company, TDC, moves to challenge a recent court ruling insisting due process was followed in a controversial Community 23 land matter.
The Tema Development Company has filed an appeal following a court ruling on the disputed land at Community 23 in Tema. In a statement, the company clarified its position stating that all allocations and transactions related to the land were carried out in accordance with established procedures. TDC maintains that the ruling does not fully reflect the facts presented and has therefore taken steps to challenge the decision at a higher court. The dispute, which has drawn significant public attention, centers on ownership claims and the legitimacy of land documentation in the rapidly developing enclave. Residents and stakeholders have expressed concerns over the uncertainty, with some calling for a swift resolution to prevent further tensions. TDC says it remains committed to protecting its assets while ensuring that lawful occupants and investors are not unfairly affected. The company also assured the public of its readiness to engage all relevant parties as the legal process unfolds. Legal experts note that the appeal could set a significant precedent for land administration and dispute resolution in the area. As the case heads to the appellate court, all eyes will be on the outcome, which could reshape land ownership dynamics in Community 23 and beyond.
In other story, government has announced plans to evacuate the first group of 300 Ghanaian nationals from South Africa on May 21st following the renewed xenophobic attacks targeting foreign nationals in the parts of the country.
The government of Ghana is set to begin the evacuation of its citizens from South Africa as concerns grow over escalating xenophobic violence. According to officials from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the first batch of 300 Ghanaians will be airlifted on May 21, with priority given to those directly affected by the attacks and those in vulnerable conditions. Authorities say arrangements have been finalized in collaboration with Ghana's High Commission in Pretoria to ensure a safe and orderly evacuation process. The government has also assured that additional evacuations will follow depending on the evolving security situation and the number of Ghanaians who opt to return home. Meanwhile, officials are engaging their counterparts in South Africa to ensure the protection of Ghanaian lives and property while calling for calm among affected communities. Back home, support systems are being prepared to receive the evacuees, including temporary accommodation and reintegration assistance. Government is urging all Ghanaians living in South Africa to remain in contact with the High Commission and adhere strictly to safety advisories.
And from that story from South Africa on xenophobic attacks on the foreign nationals, we go for a break. When we return, we'll bring you business. The Bank of Ghana is taking decisive actions to restore confidence in the foreign exchange market following a recent slide of the Ghana cedi. The central bank official says the move is aimed at easing volatility and also ensuring adequate dollar liquidity to meet demand from businesses and importers. Among the interventions are increased forex auctions, tighter monitoring of market activity, renewed efforts to curb speculative trading. The bank says it is also working closely with commercial banks to improve transparency and discipline within the forex space. The cedi has in recent weeks weakened against the major international currencies, raising concerns about inflation and the cost of import in Ghana. Economists warn that sustained pressure on the local currency could impact fuel prices, food costs, and overall economic stability if not addressed swiftly. However, the Bank of Ghana remains confident that its policy measures alongside the ongoing fiscal discipline efforts by government will help steady the currency in the short to medium term. Market watchers are now closely monitoring how these interventions will influence the cedi's performance in the coming days. Authorities are raising over suspected acts of sabotage targeting critical marine infrastructure, warning the disruption could have serious implications for food supply and livelihood across Ghana. Concerns are mounting over the safety of Ghana's marine infrastructure as incidents of suspected sabotage threaten to disrupt the country's fishing industry and food supply chain. Key facilities including landing site, cold storage units, and fishing harbors have reportedly been damaged or tampered with, affecting the operations of artisanal and industrial fishers. Officials say the situation is already impacting fish landing in coastal communities, raising fears of supply shortages and potential price hikes in the local market. The Ministry of Fisheries and Aquaculture Development is working with security agencies to investigate the incident and identify those behind the attacks. Authorities have not ruled out organized criminal activities. Industry players warn that if the situation persists, it could undermine efforts to ensure food security and threaten the livelihoods of thousands of Ghanaians who depend on fisheries sector. Government is now considering enhanced surveillance and protecting measures across key coastal infrastructure while urging communities to remain vigilant and report any suspicious activity. As investigations continue, stakeholders are calling for swift action to safeguard Ghana's marine assets and protect a vital pillar of the national economy. Away from the business desk, straight to the sporting world, where Ghana concluded its campaign at the African Senior Athletics Championship with a total haul of 5 medals, marking a strong finish on the continental stage. Ghana has wrapped up its participation at the African Seniors Athletics Championship with 5 medals, underscoring a competitive performance against some of Africa's top athletic nations. The team secured a mix of podium finishes across track and field events, with athletes delivering standout performance in sprint, jumps, and endurance races. Officials from the National Athletic Camp have described the result as encouraging, noting improvement in both medal count and athlete consistency compared to previous editions. Coaches say the performance reflects growing investment in athletes' development, though they acknowledge the need for greater support to convert more finals appearances into gold medals. The medal tally places Ghana among the respectable performance at the championship, with attention now shifting to future international competitions and qualification pathways. Sports analysts believe the results provide a solid foundation for upcoming global events as Ghana continues to build a stronger presence in track and field on the world stage. Away from the sporting desk, out to the entertainment world, where Ghanaian music star Wiala has been officially crowned Global Fugu Queen and also appointed tourism ambassador in recognition of her cultural influence and promotion of traditional heritage. Award-winning artist Wiala has been honored with a dual recognition as Global Fugu Queen and a tourism ambassador, celebrating her role in promoting Northern Ghanaian culture and indigenous fashion. The coronation highlights her strong advocacy for traditional Fugu attire, a symbol of identity and a pride in Northern Ghana, which has been consistently showcased on both local and international platforms. Tourism officials says her appointment is expected to boost cultural tourism with a focus on promoting Ghana's rich traditions, music, and creative arts industry to a global audience. The Ghana Tourism Authority described the recognition as part of efforts to leverage influential cultural figures to project Ghana as a top destination for heritage and ecotourism. Wiala, known for blending contemporary African sounds with traditional influences, says she's committed to using her platform to spotlight local craftsmanship and empower communities through culture and music. The honor adds to her growing list of international recognition as one of Africa's leading cultural ambassadors in the creative arts space. Now we move straight to the international front. You're still listening to the Evening Bulletin live and direct from the MBN TV, the Mega Broadcasting Network. On the international front, transport services across Kenya have severely disrupted following a nationwide strike by drivers and transport operators protesting rising fuel prices. A major transport strike has brought movement to a near standstill in parts of Kenya as drivers, transport unions, and commercial operators protest the continued rise in fuel prices. The industrial action affected both urban and intercity routes, leaving thousands of commuters stranded and forcing many businesses to adjust operation due to supply delay. Key highways and transport hubs, including routes in and around Nairobi, have been significantly reducing traffic as operators park their vehicles in solidarity with the strike. Union leaders says the action is aimed at pressuring government to urgently address fuel price and taxes and related transport levies that they argue are unsustainable for the industry. Authorities in Kenya have appealed for calm and are engaging transport stakeholders in an effort to resolve the impasse and restore normal service. Security agencies are also monitoring major transport corridors to prevent any escalation, whilst discussions continue between government officials and union representatives. The disruption has raised concerns about its impact on the cost of goods and daily economic activity if the strike persists in the coming days. And that brings us to the end of this evening bulletin, live and direct on our dial, on our channel on MBN TV. We also live across our social media handles. But before take leave of you, let's take a second look at the stories making headlines.
President John Dramani Mahama challenges World Health Organization. Reform must be real, not ritual. In business, BOG moves to calm forex storm as cedi weekends. And on the international front, strike over high fuel prices paralyzes transport in Kenya.
And that brings us to the end of this evening bulletin. For more news, log on to MBN 360. We're also live across our social media handles. We want to say a big thank you for staying with us. My name is El Samuels. We'll be back with more news, same time tomorrow. Have a good evening.